Hello and welcome to NDTV. I'm Rohit Khildani. Joining me is Deepika Padukone, who is fresh from the success of 83 as a producer, Gehraiyaan as an actor. So this is clearly, I've got you at a great time.
Well, I think first of all, the fact that we're meeting after in person after a while.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, I'm not complaining. 83 I think was again extremely well received, and the response to that was also extremely overwhelming. A little disappointing that we sort of had a third wave kind of scare that happened just around that time. But I think eventually I always believe that the love of a film supersedes everything. And I truly believe that a film like 83, will stand the test of time.
Right.
And then came straight into Gehraiyaan. And I think just right from the time we dropped the teaser, the trailer, it's been beyond overwhelming.
Wow.
So yes, extremely grateful at this point.
Right, so we have to discuss Gehraiyaan. But as a producer, you decided to back 83, you placed your bets on it. How important was it for you as a producer, as a known person in the industry, for this to actually work for everyone, including the actors and everyone?
Well, I think that 83 is one of those historic moments for India, for our country. And it truly put India on the global map. Not just as far as sport was concerned, but I think people actually sat up and took notice. And of course, there were several other sort of historic moments that took place around the time. Prakash Padukone won the first All England for India.
Yes.
But 83 again, because of cricket and because of how it's celebrated in our country and around the world, and cricket is literally like a religion. But I think more importantly, I think what took people by surprise, I think, was the human spirit more than anything else. And I think that's what we were trying to capture through this film.
Right.
And I think therefore the film transcended beyond just cricket lovers.
Yeah.
Yes, you have cricket, yes, you have Kapil Dev and his incredible team, but also it was the triumph of the human spirit. And I think when that is the story, it resonates with absolutely everyone. And yes, and therefore I think it was important for this story to be told.
Right.
And important that the future generations are aware and educated about just their incredible journey.
Right. When we decided to do this, you decided to produce it, what did the sportsman dad say?
Oh, extremely proud. I think anything to do with sport to begin with.
Right.
First of all, anything to do with me or any choice that I make, my father's anyway just sort of always beaming with pride and joy.
Right.
So the very fact that I was producing a film, he was anyway proud about that. And then combine that with the fact that it happens to be a film based on sport.
Right.
And then then a historic moment. And then my husband's featuring in it. So I think all of those things, and I think my family's always been extremely proud of, proud of the way I've conducted myself, proud of the choices that I've made, proud of the way I've grown and evolved. But they're also, extremely critical of my work and honest more than anything else. So they're not people who'll, my father maybe a little less. He still sort of holds back a little bit. But my mother and sister are extremely honest.
Right.
Brutally honest sometimes. And I appreciate that.
Right,
I think that's extremely important to have people around you that, that keep you grounded and give you a reality check and are honest with you.
Right.
And I choose to live a life that, where I'm not surrounded by yes men.
Absolutely. And you said this in one of the interviews previously also, that your sister is one of your biggest honest critic also. I really want to know, because she's from this generation, what does she say about Gehraiyaan?
I think at a personal level, I think it was a little difficult for them to digest what my character goes through. And I think that, they've seen it so up close and personal with me that I think at a personal level, it was a little difficult for them to go through that. Having said that, I think what they truly appreciated was my performance.
Right.
And also the way mental illness and mental health was depicted in the film. I think these were the two sort of big takeaways. So yes, I think just overall extremely proud of how I was able to pull that off. And also a little bit of how do you do this? What is your process? Or, we didn't see you rehearse, we didn't see you practice, we didn't see you. So where does it come from? Just a little bit of, you do so much in a day, and then you're also able to pull off something like that. So I think just a little bit of, how did you do it? So yeah.
Alicia was a very interesting character. She's being discussed on social media like nobody else today. There may be people who say they relate to her. There may be people who say she's completely wrong what she's doing. That's her cousin's fiance. Did you see her as right, wrong, black, white?
No, I didn't, because that's not the tonality of the film. The tonality of the film is not to say that, look, here are these flawed characters, and and let's go on this journey with them, and let's, by the end of it, dissect and decipher and see who's right and who's wrong, or who's black and who's white. I think the idea of this film was more observational, to observe that there are different kinds of people in this world. And we may not as individuals always agree or accept or make the same choices that characters like these make, but that doesn't mean they don't exist.
Of course, right.
And the fact that, are we able to understand, are we able to empathize with these characters? You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with the choices at all. I don't agree with those choices. But as an actor, you have to step out of that lens of judgment and be able to say, here is a character, and based on the story, these are the choices that she makes. How do I infuse, how do I humanize this character? How do I infuse empathy? And how do I make it a character that is relatable? And how do I perform it in a way where by the time people come out of it, they may not agree, like I said, but they don't judge her either.
They don't hate her or anything.
Hate her or judge her. I think historically in the films that we've seen with, with characters such as these, to begin with, the story in itself is told in through a very judgmental lens.
Right.
This is right and this is wrong.
Right.
This is the villain and this is the hero. And I think what we're trying to do with this film is to move away from that.
Okay.
And not judge these characters. Again, like I said, we may not personally make these choices, we may not agree, but there's a reason why people do what they do. And are we able to empathize with these characters and humanize them? And that's what makes them real. That's what makes them relatable. That's
where, Deepika, your talent comes in, and nobody came out judging her. Before you did this, like when you were reading about it, and in the earlier interview, you explained the process of before signing a film, you take your time, you sit on it. Was this a concern that what if people judge her? What if people think she's not right? And did you think of these things?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, by that logic, actors should stop playing negative parts.
Fair enough.
Actors should stop doing parts that require them to be a criminal. They should stop acting in parts that require them to be sadistic. I don't know.
Fair enough.
You know, as an actor, you have to distance yourself from the judgment of things. And the reason why I took time, 2 days, to think about this was more from an emotional perspective.
Okay.
because I knew that it was going to draw so much out of me emotionally, mentally, and then physically, that I think I just needed time to decide whether I was ready for such a big commitment. And that's really all that, that's really why I took that time. Not because I felt like, oh, it's a grey character, or, how are people going to respond to her choices?
Right.
None of that.
Right. The way Shakun has written it, exactly the way you were explaining, there's an audience that understands it exactly that way. But there's also an audience that's, that's talking about the intimacy. Do you think from all that you have read and all the feedback that you have got, is intimacy in movies, in this also Gehraiyaan, accepted in today's audience that's watching this, in the way you all are making it?
Oh yes, of course. In fact, there's not one person who comes out thinking only about the intimacy.
Right.
Nobody's come out saying, oh my God, there was so much intimacy in the film and that was my only takeaway from the film. I think that the second half of the film, or the latter part of the film, really is a completely different kind of roller coaster. And the intimacy at no point was to excite an audience,
right.
Or at no point was it to used as a marketing tool.
Sure.
Having said that, I think it would be extremely inauthentic on our part to tell a story such as this with these sort of characters and not be true to the intimacy that you would see in people like them in the world today.
Right.
Are we, have we seen stuff like this at least in Indian cinema before? Probably not. But I think the comfort also came, for me the comfort really was that it was dealt with in an extremely professional manner. You've never heard of an intimacy director on set.
Right.
You've never heard of actors doing intimacy workshops. So an audience is okay, because you've been conditioned like that or preconditioned like that it's okay for actors to do action rehearsals. It's okay for actors to do dance rehearsals.
Right.
Intimacy is another part of it.
Right.
It's a part of the creative process, and then actors therefore rehearse for it and then you execute it.
Right.
So as an actor, I don't see it any different from any other demand or any other requirement that any other film might have.
Sure, yeah.
Very
interesting. One can understand the way you're saying it. It's very interesting. I was just interviewing Madhuri Dixit yesterday, and she explained, she said, when I went on the set initially, early in the days, there'd be two women. One would be me and one would be my makeup person.
Yes.
And today, you're talking about, intimacy director. Do you want to explain to this audience that what is this, what does this person do, and why is it important for everyone who's doing such work, who'll have scenes like that in the future?
Yeah, I think that the simplest way to put it is, when you have an action film, you have an action director. When you have a song and dance sequence, you have a dance director or a choreographer who comes in and takes care of that piece.
Right.
And similarly, intimacy in a film like this is one of the pieces of the film. And I think the way we've handled it historically in our country is that you just put the actors in the spot and say, acha chalo, now do this.
Right.
Without consent, without asking if they're okay with it or not, without understanding boundaries. And I think what we've been able to do with this film is give it the same kind of dignity and give it the same kind of respect as any other department that requires to make a movie such as this. It's a tool that has been used in the West for many years, and I guess there's so much chatter around it now today because we're probably the first people to introduce it.
Right.
Having said that, like I said, I think that by the end of the film, that's not the only thing people come out talking about. There's so much more to learn from it, about choices, about consequences, about childhood trauma, about relationships and how they evolve. And I don't mean only romantic relationships, your relationships with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends. So there's so many more things to take away from the film. But yeah, I mean, that really is the role of an intimacy coordinator or an intimacy director, to make sure that the actors are comfortable and are able to perform in a safe environment.
Right. Very well done to all of you, for doing that. And Deepika, also, having watched that film, you did give, a lot to this film. One can see that one can see the hard work gone into it and the dedication gone into it. At some level, I know, I'm not sure it's the right thing to say, but this was also a lot on your shoulders. You are you've been a star for much longer than the other lead cast members. Did this play on your mind? Do you take this extra pressure ever?
I wouldn't call it extra pressure, but
Okay.
was I aware of it? Yes, at a
Okay.
subconscious level, yes.
Okay.
When you ask me that now, yes, I think at a subconscious level I was aware of it. Having said that, I don't think I walked onto set thinking that I'm now here the actor who's had 15 years behind me, and these are actors who've been around 2 or 3 films. In fact, my approach was quite the opposite.
Okay.
It was to say, let me leave all of this baggage behind, and let me do whatever it takes to make them feel as comfortable as
Right.
possible. And I think the attempt also for me was to have them understand me, the person, and not this sort of actor with 15 years of experience
Right.
and everything, or this sort of personality or aura that one is exposed to. And I think that's why the workshops that we did initially really helped. We were there for about a week or 10 days before we actually started filming. And, we had different kinds of readings, different kinds of workshops. And I think I'm glad that happened, because I got to understand them as people, because I'd never met them before. I'd not spent so much time with them. And I'd like to believe that they got to see a side of me that people probably usually don't get to see. So yes, I mean, at a subconscious level, I was aware of it, but at the same time, every step of the way, I was conscious of the fact that they feel that everyone feels like equals,
Right.
and that they feel confident.
Right.
And that they feel safe and secure.
Nice. As I jokingly said in the earlier interview, you were not the bully of the group.
I mean, I wouldn't call it the bully, but yes, sometimes, and my friends always make fun of me because I have this quality of being a little bit of a teacher, kind of the strict one, making sure that things are,
Right.
The discipline or the punctuality, some of those things are very inherent to my personality. So
Right.
those things, sometimes it would come out. I was like, guys, come on now, we're getting late. Come on. Stop laughing now, we have a serious scene.
Teacher
So
aa
just
gayi.
like that teacher, and they'll be like, yes ma'am, yes teacher. But all like,
Sweet,
fun, yeah.
Right. Are you planning your filmography to go a certain way? And there, after 10, 15, 20 years, like you've already completed 15 years. After 20 years, do you want that these are the films that I want, these are the kind of cinema I want on my filmography? Does this thought go into signing a Gehraiyaan?
Of course. Yes, of course. I mean, of course, a lot of it is, like I've always said, a lot of it is you can't pre-plan these things. They're instinct.
Sure.
It's what your heart and mind is telling you at that point. Are you in that moment as an individual ready to take on those opportunities that come your way? But yes, at the same time, when you embark on that journey, you realize, wow, I think we're set out to make something really special, and you can only hope. There's no guarantee to any of this, but you can only hope that by the end of it, that you are able to leave some sort of legacy behind, and be remembered for the films that you chose to be a part of and the characters that you've left behind.
Right, interesting. A lot of people also follow you because of the person you are, the celebrity you are. Personally also, you do what you want. You do the films you want. You take a stand when you want. Will this continue? Because again, sorry, I'm bringing up Madhuri Dixit again. She was explaining to me that there was nobody to tell me what to do.
Yes.
Today you have a lot of people to tell you what to do, but will Deepika listen to someone because it's marketing, it's publicity?
No, I completely agree with what she says. I think in a lot of ways, sure, I guess it was far more difficult for her. It became a little less difficult for us. But I started off exactly the same way. I didn't come here with an entourage of 25 people, with a stylist in my entourage or with a hair and makeup person. None of that. I mean, if you look at my interviews or my pictures at events from 10, 15 years ago, I looked completely different. I would wear my own clothes from my own wardrobe, do my own hair and makeup. You didn't have, a PR agent. There was no concept of an agency or an agent. There was no concept of a manager traveling with you. Like none of this existed. In fact, with myself, Katrina, I think we were the first few people who came into, who had sort of a mix of both, where we didn't have it, and then that culture started coming in, and then we kind of adapted and took on that culture. Whereas today, I see all of these young girls and boys completely prepared. They're told how to stand, how to sit, how to conduct themselves, what to say, what not to say, what to wear, what not to wear, how they should do their hair, how they should do their makeup. And I mean, a part of me says, wow, that's incredible. Like we didn't have any of that. We've grown into it. We've made our mistakes along the way. But a part of me also appreciates that, because it also gives you the opportunity to understand who you are, and it gives you the opportunity to learn and make mistakes, and you find yourself in that journey. Whereas today I personally find it a little too packaged already. So where are they living life, and where are they making their mistakes, and where are they learning? I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying I'm curious to know how that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
You're glad you started at a time when you're seeing the best of both?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the advent of the mobile phone, for that matter.
That's true.
We came in at a time when people would ask for our autographs. And transitioned from that into today. The moment is not done unless you take a selfie, right? Or you take a picture, or you take a boomerang, or you take a video. But everything is on the mobile phone today. So I've seen that in the last 15 years. When I started off, I remember when Om Shanti Om released, and we had the premiere in London, landed in Bombay, and at immigration I realized my life had changed, because suddenly everyone was asking for my autograph. And then cut to now, in the last couple of years, it's mobile phones everywhere, and that's a very different life. Whereas the generation today has been born into that.
Right.
There's nothing, at least at the moment, there's nothing for them to get used to. This is the life the era that that they've been born into. So I guess they take to it far more easily. So yes, I mean, just it's different. I'm not saying what is good or what is bad. I'm just saying it's very, very different.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. Lastly, I was just reading your films that are coming. There's Pathaan, there's Fighter, there's The Intern, there's Mahabharat, there's also a Hollywood project. Again, this is the filmography you want, right?
Yeah, again, like I said, a lot of it is just gut and what comes to me at the point. But then when you read it out like this, it makes me feel like, oh, that's quite a buffet. So it's exciting. I mean, it's always exciting as an actor to be able to do something like an 83 and then get into a Gehraiyaan and then get into something like Pathan, which is an out and out action film. And then do something like The Intern. So, I mean, that's what I live for. That's the most exciting part of being an actor.
Right, just for them, where will they see you next out of all these?
I'm guessing Pathan would be next.
Wow. Big one, good one to end this interview.
In a couple of months.
Right. Deepika, you've spoken from your heart as always. That's why I really, really love interviewing you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.